Well, goodness, I can't even, what Denny said, I feel the same about her, like the compassion, and you guys know her. She's amazing and selfless and just constantly giving to other people, all in God's name. So thank you, Denny, for having me here. And I'm super glad that I got to meet you when I went to the conference in 2015. Is that when it was? I was blown away at that, to just know that there were people in Tulsa that were doing work that maybe I hadn't even touched on, whether it was foster care or other types of work, but just the hearts of people in that room really were inspiring to me. So a little bit about me, sorry, a little bit about me, like Denny shared, I'm a registered nurse, so I never imagined that I would be doing work with people that were experiencing homelessness or just needed help or somebody to walk with them. That is not what I had envisioned for myself in my life and our family, but I can't imagine doing anything rather than what I'm doing right now. Was a registered nurse at St. Francis Hospital, worked there for about 13 years in the trauma ICU, taking care of really sick people, and loved it. Loved my work there, loved what I got to do. And then in, I don't even remember what year it was, probably 2010, I'm trying to think, 2009, I had a miscarriage and then and had to have a DNC. And then after that, I showed up with a rare condition called idiopathic tracheal stenosis. I had about 18 surgeries. I was 6 months pregnant when I found out that's what I had, and it was just a really scary time. Got through that and had my baby, was doing okay for a while, felt like it was coming back, and so it's basically scar tissue in my trachea, so it was affecting my breathing. Started coming back, and I didn't want to face it. I honestly remember thinking, I know this is what this is, and I'm not going to have anybody look at me because I don't want to admit that this is what this is. And so was pregnant again with my son, which was not expected, and had him and just was really struggling. Went in to have a doctor look because it was really affecting me, even being able to walk up the stairs to read a children's book at night or any of those things. I just didn't have the airway to do it. And so went in, and that nearly put me in an ICU in my own hospital. The doctor came in and she said, this is going to be the rest of your life. You're going to need a trach, and you should just get used to this. And so it took me a minute. I had a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear, and there was just a quietness that finally came over me that allowed me to stop and think and be like, okay, I've advocated for patients forever and ever. It's time for me to figure out what advocating for myself and this looks like. And so I researched everything and ended up in Boston with a doctor there. I had no idea what to expect going to Boston other than like I could come back with a trach, I could not survive. It could go perfectly, but I knew I was leaving my 3 babies at home, and I knew I wouldn't see them for a while. So we packed up and saw their toys in the living room and had a moment, and then went and got on a plane and flew to Boston. So they did a tracheal resection in Boston, so you can see my scar here. And while we were there was just this moment of like, oh my goodness, like people are surrounding our family. I had people taking care of our kids. There were people that sent us with gift cards to pay for stuff. My surgery was out of pocket and cost more than our house did. And people just took care of us. We were there for 2 weeks. So my husband was in a hotel in downtown Boston for 2 weeks, which is super expensive. And so just kind of coming out of that, I was like, man, I'm not a bad person, but what am I doing for others? Like, what am I really doing for somebody else? And not even having the words around it then, but to be community to somebody that maybe doesn't have a community around them. And so I couldn't talk for a month, which was a big deal for me, if you know me. That's a really long time to not have a voice. That's right. So anyway, we came back, and my husband had kind of been looking, and we could kind of both have that same, like, man, we're not bad people, but we're just kind of standing. We're not really doing anything for anybody else. And so, or walking with people or whatever. And so he saw a documentary that featured a place in Portland, Oregon called Lord Save Us from Your Followers. That's the name of the documentary, which is kind of ironic. And so it featured a place in Portland that set up under a bridge and served people that were experiencing homelessness. And he brought that to me to watch, and we sat there and we both just cried. And I just knew, that is it. That is what we're supposed to be doing. I don't know how we're going to do it, but that's what we're supposed to be doing. So about that same time, I had a friend that was doing mission work in Portland, and she posted on Facebook that she had just volunteered at this thing under this bridge that was incredible. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And so I messaged her, and it was the same thing. And I was like, this is a holy moment. Like, something is happening here. So we started when she got back, we started calling around to some of our local shelters, really researching what there was available in Tulsa. Is it easy for people to volunteer? Would they let us do it on their site? And we got one closed door after another. We were told that we were women and it wasn't safe. We were told, we do our own thing. We don't want you here. We were told, no, we don't let kids volunteer. No, you have to fill out all of this stuff to be able to volunteer. And it just was such a heartbreaking experience, because I really had felt like God was doing something in me to step out and do something different than what I had been doing. And it just felt like all these doors were being closed. So we kind of sat on it. My family would go downtown and walk around. We would take lunches and sit with people. My kids would hand businessmen a lunch the same as they would hand somebody that was experiencing homelessness a lunch, which was really beautiful to watch the uncomfortableness of the businessman. We would just do that every month. And so it really grew that in my kids' hearts, that people are people and we need each other. And so we did that, and the next year came around. My friend went back to Portland to do mission work. We'd still been talking about it. It just hadn't really taken off. And my son's birthday is in June. And so I was asking him, what do you want to do for your birthday? And he said, well, I'd really like to take my friends downtown and serve people that are experiencing homelessness, or serve the homeless is what he said. And I was like, man, there's no way that parents are going to let that happen. They're just not going to do it. And so I was like, are you sure? Maybe we could just do a Star Wars party. We can have all your friends over. Star Wars is easy. I know how to do that. And he was just relentless with it. He wanted to go downtown and he wanted to be with his friends that he had met. And so I had a friend at church who just really was willing to speak truth into me in that moment and say, you should listen to what he is on fire for and get as close to it as what you can. And so I kind of took a step back and was like, okay, well, we'll offer this, and if people come, they come, and if not, then we'll be there with him. And we did, and every one of those boys' parents let them come. And we walked around town and we met with people, and it was just really beautiful to watch these 5-8-year-olds loving our city, whoever came right in front of them, with no questions, with no stigmas, with no none of that. It was just really beautiful. And so the next week we were in charge of our community group at church. We had to figure out what we were going to do, and it was a real quick figure out that we're going to do this again. And so we did, and everybody came, and it was really a great time. And on the way back, my husband and I were walking back in 2 different groups, and when we got to the car, we were discussing the day, and the theme that kept coming up was so-and-so said we should do this more often, and they said we should do this more often. But I knew, I didn't want to just walk around. I wanted to build community and build relationships. And to be able to do that, I thought it was important that we had a space where people could come. And so got home from that and was like, man, that's our core group. Those are our people. And so we called them all, met in my living room, and prayed every week, every day, but met and prayed once a week for 2 months. Everybody had a job to figure out where we were going to be, how it was going to work, why we were doing it, all of those things. And we started Night Light Tulsa in September of 2013. And so it'll be 9 years next month that we've been serving under that bridge, and really wanted to be really intentional and do it every week, even through the winter, because relationships aren't based on seasons. Like when you're there for somebody, you're there for somebody. And so that kind of started that like initial push. And then from that, like God just continued to grow things through different people that I've met under there and different experiences I've had. I think one of the things that there are so many reasons why for me, and there are a lot of different situations or a lot of different things and experiences that I've had that I can like not see in the moment what God's doing, but like when you like step back from it and a little bit of time passes, you're like, oh man, like he was doing something big and I didn't even know. And I was speaking at a women's group a few years ago, and I was talking, I don't even know what I was talking, I mean, I was talking about this, but I like don't even remember what part of my stuff I was in that I was discussing. And like this memory like washed over me and was super like intense. There was a day when I was working in the ICU. I came in, I'll try to not be emotional about this, but man, it is so crazy how God works when we don't even know that he's doing it. And the things that he's like teaching us and needs us to see in those moments. I came into work and got my assignment for the day, and they had assigned me a homeless gentleman that was on a ventilator, that was brain dead. They knew his name, but that's all they knew about him. They did not know how to get a hold of any family, if he had any family, anything. And I was so ugly. I was so mad that they would make me take care of this guy. The report was like, he smells awful, and you could see just how burly he was, you know, from the window, because we had like sliding doors that you could see in. And I was so mad, and just my heart was just so ugly in that moment of like, I don't want to take care of this guy. Why do I have to take care of the homeless guy? Like I can remember the things I said and also the things I thought in that moment. And I was sitting there, usually in the morning, I would look over all the labs before I'd go in and do an assessment on my patient. And so I was looking through the labs and everything, and all of a sudden, like, there was like just this gentle, like, presence in my heart and my mind that was like, man, that is somebody in there. Like, he belongs to somebody. And it was enough that like was something in me that I was like, man, you need to figure this out, Sarah. So I got up, gowned up, gloved up, masked up, went in, and they had said that they'd cut his clothes off in the ER. And so I opened the closet door, and they've like double bagged all of his stuff because it really had a strong smell and all of that. And so I'm like, I don't know, I'm just gonna start looking. So I'm digging through his pockets and his jeans, and I find a wallet. I open the wallet up, there's nothing in it, but I'm still like going through all the little pockets. You know how the wallets have like a little pocket. And I get to the very like back pocket, and tucked like super far back in there is a little note. And I pull it out and I open it up and it's got a number for the day center on it. And I'm like, okay, this is totally against HIPAA. I have like no rights to ask them anything, but like, he's brain dead. They're going to pull him off a ventilator. And this person who is somebody will pass away and nobody will know. And so I called the day center. I said, hi, this is Sarah from St. Francis. I know that this is against all the HIPAA stuff, but I have this patient here. His name is this. And he's brain dead on a vent. And I'm just wondering, do you know him or if he has any family? And she, of course, is like, I'm going to have to call you back. It's the weekend. I can't make that decision on my own. So she calls whoever she needs to call, and they call me back. And they say, he was here 10 years. We have information on him from 10 years ago. We have a number that's supposedly a sister in Broken Arrow. If you want to call them, you're welcome to call them. We'll give you that number. So hang up. And I'm like, oh man, I don't even know what this call is going to look like. So I call that number. The sister answers, and I said, hi, this is Sarah with St. Francis. And she just broke down into tears. And her husband took the phone. And they said, is he alive? And they knew. They didn't know where he was. They didn't know if they would ever know what happened to him. And so we talked. They came up to the hospital. He had a daughter that he had been estranged from for many years that lived in California. They were able to contact her. She flew in, and she climbed up in that bed and laid with him. And they had peace as we extubated him, and he passed. Is an image I will never forget. And I had completely, not even connected, that story until I'm standing in front of a crowd, and I've ran Night Light for 4 or 5 years. And it just floods over me that we don't even know what God's doing. And we have to get uncomfortable. We have to get uncomfortable, and we have to be willing to step out because he's already working, but he is going to do even more powerful things if we're open to letting him use us. And I think that story, I had no idea where my life was going. And 2 years later, I'm, in the hospital thinking, man, I'm not really doing a whole lot. But I didn't need to, because God was already had this whole thing planned that he was working in. And so there's just been one story after another, stuff with foot washing. I know you washed feet last night. It's my most favorite place under the bridge. It is so special, and so many beautiful stories have come out of that, where people felt so uncomfortable to come over and they took a chance to sit down, and let somebody be with you that way. And so just all of these beautiful moments and experiences have led to just a passion for people and a heart that wants to bring hope to others, and to share the hope that I have, and to just walk with people. I know I said this last night at Night Light, but we are created for community. We need each other. Even our introverted selves need each other. My husband's very introverted, but he still needs his people. And I think we just have an opportunity all around us, whether it's under a bridge on a Thursday night, or whether it's in our circles at church or school, or in our communities, or walking out these doors, the different people that you'll encounter. We have an opportunity to walk into people's lives with a hope that they need. And also recognizing that they have grit and perseverance, and sometimes a hope that teaches me what it looks like to have hope. Our friends on the streets teach me things every single day, every single day. So over the last 2 years, COVID hit. We've had to shift some stuff with our organization. We ran a hotel for people that were either medically vulnerable or tested positive for COVID. We were able to isolate over 250 positive cases of COVID in the homeless community in Tulsa. Completely never had ran a shelter before, never had done that. And just I don't even know, it just happened into our hands, and we said yes to it. We were willing to be uncomfortable and know that we didn't have all the answers, but that we believed that we knew how to love people, and we knew how to create a culture of community, and that is what we did. And that was the basis for everything. Relations, like, we truly believe in the power of meaningful relationships to restore community, because we've seen it. We've seen it happen for us, and we've seen it happen for other people. And that is a true value of our organization and the people that walk with us. So we ran that. We were able to house 129 people. We didn't put anybody back on the street when it closed. We have one more person that is in a hotel that we're walking with, waiting for his housing to come through. And then we continue to walk with all those people while they're in housing. A little bit of our future vision is we're working, and it's not fully out openly yet, but we're working on a tiny home community here in Tulsa for people to be able to permanently live there with a supportive community around them. Like I said, everything we do is about the meaningful relationships and the power of relationship and community and restoration in that. And so we know, as we've walked with people over the last 9 years, that some people are fine to just step back into a normal, like, apartment type situation, but a lot of them aren't. And we also know that having somebody who you see frequently, that knows who you are and values who you are and sees your gold, is super powerful for me, but also for other people. Like, I love it when people see my gold, but like, other people love it when I see theirs. And so that relationship is really important. So we're working on that. I think I'll share one other story with you guys, and then if you have any questions, I feel like I'm kind of all over, but it's just, it's so funny how God works and what he brings to you. So I'll share one other story, which is my foot washing story, just because I love it so much. And it's just, again, like God moving in just crazy, weird ways that you just don't expect. So we set up under the bridge, and I was in charge of running the foot washing station. That was my place. That was where I had been selected to be. I don't know that I selected myself to be there. I think other people selected me to be there, but that was my station. And so I got there, we set everything up. Everybody was eating, getting burgers, getting hot dogs, whatever. And so I was like you, I was gonna go find people that wanted their feet washed, because nobody had seen it before. They didn't know. It was when we very first started. They didn't know what to expect. They didn't know what that looked like. And so I would walk around from table to table. They were round tables like this, and I would be like, does anybody want your feet washed? And they were like, no. And so I was like, how about you? Do you want your feet washed? And they're like, no. And so
a woman run off from you last night.
Yeah, it was really uncomfortable, because they'd never seen it. They had never experienced that before. And what did that mean? And all of these different things. And so I get to this one table they were probably in their 20s. And I'm like, anybody want your feet washed? Totally expecting another no. And this one guy goes, I guess I'll do it. And I was like, oh no, I have to wash his feet. I don't know what I'm doing. And so he gets up and he comes over to the foot washing station. And this is when we had first opened, so it was literally just me over there. I was the only person. We only used half the bridge back then. So he sits down in the chair, and I get everything ready, and I get down, and I'm washing his feet, and he is telling me all of the things. He had lived in New Orleans, and when Hurricane Katrina came through, it wiped everything out, and so he lost everything there, moved to Oklahoma, and been living homeless here in Tulsa. His street name was Hurricane, and we just spent time, I really just spent time listening, because I honestly had no idea what to say. He talked about people that he had lost under the street, or on the street. He talked about experiences that he had had under that bridge prior to us, being there every Thursday. My husband and I call it sacred ground now, because we think that bridge is sacred ground when we walk under there, and the community that God has created under there. But he was telling me all these things, and I'm washing his feet, and I'm just listening, and I get done. And so I'm still on my knees, and I look up at him, and I tap him on the knee, and I make eye contact, And I said, thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me spend time with you. And he diverts his eyes and he says, you are making me so uncomfortable. And I was like, oh my goodness. And then you don't know where to look, you're just like, I don't know what to do. And so I finish up and everything and I'm like, I'm so sorry, you can go now. And he walked away, and all week I carried this questioning inside me, like this, I want this to be a safe place for him, and I want him to know that he can come here. And I thought that God had called me to this, but I don't know what people on the streets are experiencing because I've never been on the streets. And like, who am I to come down here and think that I know anything? And I just really felt a heaviness of I don't know if I'm supposed to be here. And so the next week came and nobody else would do foot washing, especially after that night. They were like, nope, it's yours. But I think they thought because I was a nurse that's what I did was wash feet, which occasionally, but not typically from the day to day, was that something that I did. But anyway, so foot washing station was mine. And so I got everything set up. I was just kind of standing, watching people come in and watching them get their food and whatever, and just kind of standing back. And I see Hurricane come in from the corner of the bridge, and he walks right up to me and he looks me in the eye and he says, sit down now, it's your turn. And it caught me so off guard that I just was like, are you kidding me? What is God doing? I don't understand any of this. And I sat down and he washed my feet. And that was our first 2 weeks of the bridge. And I just share that story because there's so many lessons in it of when we step out of our comfort zone and invite somebody else to step out of theirs, and to trust God and whatever he's doing that we don't understand, that he's going to use us however he needs to use us in that moment. But we have to be willing to step out. We have to be willing to lean in and be uncomfortable. And also our friends that are different from us or have different experiences from us or whatever, we have so much to learn from each other. I don't walk in knowing exactly what's going to happen or think that I can save everything. I just walk in and hope to make a friend, hope to learn somebody's name or share a piece of myself with them, or maybe they'll open up and share a piece of themselves with me. And that relationship, that's where restoration happens. Not just for them, but for me. We need that restoration, we need that hope, and we walk that out together. And so that's kind of a couple of my stories and a little bit of what we do. I love what I get to do. I loved nursing, but I can't imagine being anywhere else other than where I'm at right now doing what I'm doing. And I feel grateful for a group of people around me with all sorts of different experiences that are all in, because it really has made a huge impact on my life. So I think that's it. Any questions?
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I hope that's what you wanted me to share. I don't know.
got a question.
Yes, sir.
I was homeless back when, before, years ago. And I came down there and it was a real place. And it was fun. You had fun. I talked to your, neighbors and people that lived in this side of the bridge and the other one lived on this side of the bridge. Yeah. But I was homeless when I came down there. Yesterday, I came down there and I wasn't homeless. And I had a lot of fun.
Wow.
I appreciate you making that,
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Well, we appreciate you being there.
I
I love that you got to experience the whole thing.
Awesome. I've always seen it, but I never,
Yeah.
And I said, "She watched." I said, "Yeah, me."
You're all in. I love it. I love it. I mean, we just have to do more. I know Denny says this all the time. We have to do more. Our housing crisis is a real, real thing. It is. These are people. These are our neighbors These are our vulnerable neighbors. These are somebody's somebody. And above that, they are God's children. And people need people to walk with them. And the situation of housing in our city is in dire need of change. People literally are dying on the streets. When we ran the hotel, so one side was for people that tested positive for COVID. The other side, that those people had to isolate because we didn't want them to get other people sick. And the shelters and hospitals couldn't keep them, and so they pushed them out, so they were on the streets. So we had a place for them to come. They stayed in isolation. We provided all their meals, everything they needed, managed their medical, that type of thing. The other side of our hotel was all people that were medically vulnerable. And just to speak to that from a nurse's perspective, I knew the vulnerability on the streets was bad. I had no idea the extent of that. We could have taken in 100 more people if we had rooms for them. It was a constant flow of people that had serious medical vulnerabilities that were not being treated, because you can't be treated when you are in a camp or sleeping outside or don't have a safe place to go. And so those friends on that side of the hotel, we've lost, in the last 2.5 years, we've probably lost, I think we're around 15 of our friends from medical conditions, not from overdose, not from all of that other stuff, from like they had serious medical conditions that they've been living with on the streets for a very long time. The other side of that is we've also had friends that we brought into the hotel that had a safe place to live, that had us advocating for their medical, making sure they made it to their appointments and those type of things. And we have people that came in with HIV and AIDS that were literally actively dying, that because we were able to walk with them and get them the medical care that they needed and make sure that they were making their appointments and stuff, their numbers are like unremarkable now, and they're doing very well, and we've moved them into housing, and then we're checking on them weekly. And so I think there's a huge need right now for somewhere for people to go, and I know this is your heart, that are struggling with medical vulnerabilities and other vulnerabilities that need a place that they can go. The street is not a place for people that need to heal. And whether that's a medical vulnerability that they need to heal from, or from addiction or trauma, it is not a place that we are meant to heal at. And so I think we have to start looking creatively as partners as organizations, but also as partners as a community as a whole, to start looking for ideas and ways to be caring for our neighbors that don't have anybody to walk with them. And the work that we did at the hotel is some of the most proud work we did. It's some of the most difficult work I've ever done. And being faced with that much medical all at the same time. I know Leslie came and talked to you guys earlier today from the day center. They were a huge partner of ours. She and Hope came in once a week, and we rallied on everybody that we needed to see, made sure they were getting to appointments, things like that. But it is a daunting situation to not have any housing, to have friends that have medical conditions and a voucher in hand and nowhere for them to go. And that is a very real thing that people are facing today on the streets. So we have to do more, we have to do better, and we have to get creative about it. And then everybody has to step in and lean in to what God can do to change the situation in our city. And really to change, not even in our city, but like, these are people's lives. So, all right, soapbox. Yeah, so our hotel was funded through the city for COVID, and they chose not to keep it open in March. So it closed April 1st. So we were open, at first it was, COVID was real weird. So it was supposed to be open for 3 months, and it was a month shy of 2 years that we ran it. So we served it was probably close to 500 people total out of the hotel. A little over 250 of those were in the COVID hall, and then everybody else would have been in our other hall. So, yeah. So, it was super amazing to watch people when they were given a safe place where they were cared for. I think our highest number, so we could serve around 75. We had 69 rooms, but like some of those, if they were partners or whatever, or husband, wife, whatever, they were together. So, and we had kids. We had some that were kids. But yeah, to watch somebody come in that's been on the street and been abused and stolen from and fearful and all of that, and step into a room, and you can probably speak to this for yourself, to step into a room that is yours, that has a door that locks, and you can take a shower and a phone that's available, and we provided 3 meals a day, like beautiful meals that were from partners all across Tulsa. Like the healing that happened there was incredible. And I think we discount like the trauma that people go through on the streets. We had people that would spend months sleeping on the floor because they were afraid to get used to a bed because it might get taken away from them. I mean, that is deep-rooted trauma for people. And so, you know, we walk with people and we try to understand what that's like as best we can. And I can't tell you how many times one of my staff members was looking at one of our neighbors and saying, I'm here. Like, you're safe, we've got you. And to have that like safety net formed again, and to have somebody that they knew really meant it, like, you're gonna get mad and you're gonna scream at me and you're gonna cuss at me and it's gonna be a whole thing, but I'm not leaving. Yeah, I'm not leaving. Yeah, it is Denny. That is Denny. I mean, like, that is super impactful because people are coming at you with all of their stuff, and fearful. And so we just have to be a soft place to land. And that doesn't mean that we don't have healthy boundaries. That doesn't mean any of that, because we want good for people and boundaries are healthy. But it's like boundaries that have like a wall of love, like right with them. And so, anyway, they closed it. They didn't continue funding, so we closed. It was the only low barrier shelter in Tulsa, meaning you could come in. If you were using, we'd work with you. We didn't keep people out because they showed up with alcohol. We just worked with them. And also it was the only shelter in Tulsa that accepted pets. And so I think the pet count numbers this year, which is the point in time count where they count everything for the city of Tulsa, I want to say that the number of people with pets was like 12 or 18% or something like that. So that's a whole percentage of people that don't even have a place to go right now because there's no shelter that they can go in with their animal. So, other questions?
I mean, as far as the city choosing not to continue funding, I mean, was that like federal code relief money that they were getting, or what did they say they couldn't?
Yeah.
Did they say they couldn't fund it anymore?
Yeah, it was their choice. We were not given an opportunity to speak on behalf of ourselves. We just submitted, the document saying we would like to continue funding, and they didn't. I can tell you this, at our hotel, we had one fight in 2 years, and it was a ridiculous fight, and honestly, one of the most, I was like, you guys, you've got to be kidding me. They punched each other, that was it. And then they decided to go to court against each other, so we literally put them in 2 different cars and had one of us with each of them and went to court with them. But the beautiful of that whole story was we did not kick either one of them out. We did not ban either one of them. We kept both of them, and both of them are now in housing. And so I think, that looks a lot different than some other places, but part of it is we have rooms where people can go and pull away for a minute and get their mind cleared. We can check in with them. We can do some restorative relationship type things. We can talk things out and look at that in a different way than what people are used to when they're having to protect all their stuff on the streets.
Is that building owned by the city?
No, it was a functioning hotel that we rented. So
is it like still functioning?
Okay. Yeah, it actually switched owners in the time that we were there. We loved the owner that we got to work with, especially at the end. He was fantastic, and was really caring for the neighbors that we brought in. He provided meals for them and snacks for them, and he was great. But yeah, they've redone the hotel, and they're opening back up. So yeah. I mean, the hope is I would love to see our city provide some dignified shelter like that. That's like a temporary step housing. But what the other part of that is so beautiful is like there is a huge true need for somewhere that people are vulnerable to be able to go. Like medically, it is so needed.
And not just accept their condition and live in bad conditions.
Right. Yeah. That's clean and dignified. Yeah. 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 That's safe and dignified and clean.
This is where I'm going to be the rest of my life, right here on the side of the ditch.
Yeah. I think one of the things that it did, and that's a great point, is like it allowed people to take a breath and to begin to dream for their life again. Yeah, like they were able to be like, oh, I'm safe. Now I'm not in this like protection place. Like we can start to dream for our lives again. I'm not in survival. I'm going to move from surviving to thriving. And that allowed room for that to happen. But I think, even with that, the hotel was a great place for that to happen, but people had to come alongside. We had volunteers that would donate a bunch of meat, and we would do a huge chili cook-off, and everybody's got 10 cups of chili, it's that community. Or we would have Spirit Week, and so we're doing tie-dye, and we're painting pumpkins, and we're doing karaoke, which is so much fun. And we're doing all of these things because community is key to everything we do. So, yeah, it was really beautiful. Other questions?
It's not a question, it's just a commentary. So, as someone who has had the opportunity to listen yesterday and today to all of the people, it is so overwhelming to me to see God's thread running through everything. And even though y'all didn't compare notes, I know you didn't, that there is the underlying theme, and I think that it's the underlying theme because it's truth, right? That when you have the right support in the form of community, you have a higher degree of success in life, period.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan Graham runs a tiny home community in Austin, Texas. He's a friend of ours. And he wrote a book. It's called Welcome Homeless. And in that, he talks about those threads. And he talks about unraveling what you think you're supposed to be and allowing God to intertwine the threads of people in your lives. And the beautiful garment that comes because of that. And I think that's exactly true. It is all based in community and people, all of us, whether you're experiencing homelessness or you're working in foster care or you're whatever you're doing, all of those things need a community around them. And that community has to come, we can't expect our city to do it, right? We can't expect all these other agencies. We have to do that as a whole, as a body. And it starts with each one of us individually choosing to do something that might be uncomfortable and leaning in. So, other stuff, comments, questions? Thank you guys for allowing me to come talk. Hope I didn't talk your ear off. See, I have my voice now. It was a whole month, if you can imagine. So thank you guys. And thank you for committing to this weekend with Denny and with Isaiah 58, because what a beautiful experience to get to tap into all these different people that are doing work right here. Yep. All right. Thank you.